Welcome everybody to tonight's show on Do You Believe on Live SyFy. Thanks everyone so much for joining us tonight. Now tonight we have an awesome guest with us, Jason Haxton, who is the current owner of the Dibbuk Box. And also in the studio, Tim has brought his own Dibbuk Box, which we'll show to Jason, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Tim, do you want to show the viewers your Dibbuk Box?
Yeah, I'm showing it right now. Yeah, we just set it up there. Okay.
So again, thank you so much everyone for joining us. And Jason, thanks so much for joining us tonight on the show.
Marion, thanks for inviting me on. Like I said, I've given a few over the years interviews, and certainly have nothing to hide on the topic. And if people have questions that they want to shoot it to you, I'd be happy to answer them as best I can.
Now, in case some of the viewers haven't read your bio on the Live SyFy website, could you just tell the viewers some information about yourself, please?
Right. My background is I have a museum and humanities background, an education background, a counseling degree, and I currently work at a medical museum. So dealing with human remains, tools of torture or instruments that were used in the medical days of bleeding, burning, and poisoning. That was pretty much medicine for 1,000 or 2 years. That's what I work with daily, and that's kind of how the Dibbuk Box came into my life. Not that I really pursued it, but we hired a young student to do an internship, and his roommate acquired it first. And so that's kind of a little bit of the background.
Right. Now, actually, the original owner was Kevin Mannis. And I do know the story, but would you like to tell the story how Kevin came about the box?
Right. Basically, only after, it took me a while to actually find Kevin, because the college student that I bought it from had the information, phone number, and email, but basically it was no good. He said that once he sold the Dibbuk Box, he wanted nothing to do with it. I have had the chance to also meet his, or at least talk with at length his mother, Ida, and you know, get a good feeling on who she is as a person and such. But the way Kevin portrayed that he got the Dibbuk Box was that he had a little refinishing business, and I actually was in doing some of my research in Portland, Oregon, have seen where this is, this 221 Burn Street address. And he was stocking it up with stuff, went to an estate sale where a woman had died, which is pretty typical. I do that kind of stuff in the Midwest also. He bought different things, and the Dibbuk Box, though it to him was just a little wooden wine container, he picked it up there and was approached by a family member who made a comment about the item that he bought. And he was like, well, yeah, I thought this was nice. It's like, well, that's Grandma's Dibbuk Box. And of course, it's like, well, what's a Dibbuk Box? And she goes, well, I don't know, but that's what she called it. And so he got feeling kind of odd about that. Well, maybe this is a family sentimental piece. Do you want it back? And he said it got really freaky at that point. She became really kind of aggressive and angry, and he thought, well, maybe because of the death of Grandma, and this being a personal piece, she just is kind of losing it. Offered to give it back. She didn't want it back. You bought it. It's yours. Just go away. He just kind of thought, okay, it's just stress. Took the Dibbuk Box, brought it home, decided instead of selling it at his shop that he would give it to his mother as a gift. Her birthday was coming up in a few weeks. Cleaned it up with a little lemon oil. Saw these odd things inside of it. It was locked. He removed the lock, and you can actually see on the Dibbuk Box that on the top of it, there were a couple holes where a lock was. Gives it to his mother, and she opens the gift, which has been emptied of its tokens, the stone, the cup, the hair pieces. It's just a nice little empty box. But she says from the beginning, I felt something was odd. Now,
excuse, Jason, you mean the mother opened up the box? I thought Kevin opened it up.
Kevin took it to his shop, opened it, and saw the stuff and didn't get rid of it because he was going to get it ready for a gift.
Okay.
So that was over a period of a couple of weeks. When he did bring it to the shop and opened it and then went to do some errands, it was his shopkeeper, Jane, who basically knew something was going on in the basement, that there were loud voice, which she assumed was cussing, but what she's saying was, you know, it was just obviously an angry voice. I couldn't understand it. I didn't really know what it was saying, as much as you know when something is angry, and that's when all this glass breaking started occurring. And she wanted to get out of the shop, but the gate had been locked, as many shops have these gates, you know, at the entrance, and she couldn't get out. So there she was, trapped in the store with what seemed to her like an angry person. And she hid, called Kevin. When he returned, sure enough, she was locked in the shop, and he went down to the basement, but when he went to turn on the lights, nothing would come on. He came back out. He said there was some weird smells in the basement that weren't typical. His shopkeeper, she'd left, and he said she seemed rather hysterical about it all. She left the shop. He goes back down there with the flashlight and realizes all the bulbs are broken. And so he really didn't attribute this to a spirit or anything. He just thought, okay, someone locked her in. She got pissed off. She damaged my shop, and then she left, which would seem kind of like the logical thing that happened. Now, I do have to say, I did meet Jane, and she seems on the up and up. She's a mother of 3 kids, buys for, I think, Dillard's in Oklahoma somewhere, and, you know, seems to be unshaken, and this happened to her in that shop. So basically, that was kind of Kevin goes on, hires a new person to work with him at the shop, continues to get the gift ready, and presents it to his mother, who says, I saw it and knew it was wrong. And this was just me and her without Kevin in the picture at all. We'd had conversations at length. At first, she'd never talked about it, but she was injured one night, and that's when she kind of spilled her guts on this story. And she said, what do you tell your son? He brings you a gift. What do you tell him? I don't want that thing? You know, it's your son. So you take the gift, and she goes, suddenly, a power came out of this thing into me. And she goes, we live near Mount St. Helens, and it goes off every now and then. She goes, if you've never been near a volcano, she goes, that kind of energy is what I felt. And she goes, next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. I couldn't speak, and yet there was my son, and I had to warn him. And that's when she spelled out, pointing to letters, hate, basically no gift, meaning get rid of the gift. Kevin didn't understand what she wanted, said, Mom, I gave you a gift. And she wrote or spelled out, hate gift. And she says, I've never wanted anything to do with it. There's nothing good about it. And she was glad when it was gone. And she suffers, I know Ida, she suffers to this day pretty significantly. So if you want to know, that's kind of where the story is. Kevin figures out it really is this gift. He gets rid of it. The college student buys it because he's curious about the spiritual world, and things go wrong in his life, and it's offered for sale. And I'll be honest, I did not want this box. I was curious. I certainly wanted to see it. I did not want to own it. And a friend of mine who did illusionary work was like, oh my gosh, this would be a great prop. If it's got a haunt, great. If it doesn't, it's still a great story. And once it was purchased, really he had no desire to have it. And that's when things started going wrong in my life. So kind of a long version, but there's the story for those of you that haven't heard it before.
One second, Jason. Everybody, I forgot to introduce my co-host with me tonight.
I'm just a spectator tonight.
Thanks, Tim, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Jason, the contents. You said that Kevin, did he get rid of them, or he just emptied the box of those contents? Because I have a list of the contents that were in the box. So when you got the box, were those contents not in the box?
Kevin said that he actually removed the items thinking they were personal things. I mean, a dried rose, some hair, maybe they were some kid's hair from, their first hair cutting, a strange candlestick, a Jewish prayer stone. He actually tried to contact and get the items back to the family that didn't want them. So he kept them kind of out of the box in his shop, but had the box itself empty the whole time after his mother didn't want he tried to sell it. But on several occasions, first a middle-aged couple bought it, and he said within 3 days he came to his shop to open up, and there it was, sitting outside with a note saying, "This has a dark presence about it." He didn't understand what it meant, but he said it's also odd because on this kind of a street, and I've been there, there's a lot of traffic, that this thing could just sit here and nobody take it. And so he put it back in his shop. He said a police officer came in. There had been kind of a skirmish with the box. If you read the book that I wrote, the Dibbuk Box, it explains this. And the policeman came in later just to kind of touch base. How are you doing? The Dibbuk Box went towards it, and just as he was about to touch it, Kevin thought, "Oh my gosh, I've got a sale." And you know when somebody wants something. And he says just as he was about to put his hand on it, he just started stepping backwards and just very quickly left the shop. And so, always some odd stories about it. But the items, 2 pennies, 1925, 1928, a dried rose, a brass cup that could hold liquor or wine, which typically enhances a spiritual anything spiritual with alcohol kind of enhances the situation, I guess. That's according even to a NASA metallurgist that I got to meet through this thing. There was then this granite stone, and as we know, granite can hold energy with shalom, peace written on it, and this strange candlestick with octopus feet, the sea being mysterious, this thing being from about the 1890s candlestick, peking glass candlestick, it was in it. And then if you spun the box around, the back had carved into it a Hebrew prayer called the Shema, which is the first prayer you might learn, and maybe the last one. And basically, it just says that God is God, and the one that basically prepares a paradise for us. And so that's pretty much the Dibbuk Box.
And those contents were in the box when you got it?
Right. What Kevin said was when he sold it, he was going to stick the stuff back in it. So he stuck it back in it, sold it to the college kid. The college kid got rid of it, everything in it just as it was.
Now, I understand that when they did the story on Paranormal Witness, that they didn't bring in all the information on that show. And I did watch the show, and some of the information was left out, and I don't know what their reasoning was for that. I guess just because it's Hollywood.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a 45-minute show.
Yeah.
I mean, they put a lot in, but obviously, yeah, there was only so much they could cover. I see you have on the screen the 2 Dibbuk boxes. Actually, if you look to the left, you can actually see the candlestick, the brass cup, some of the contents inside. What you see next to it is actually a replica made by the Amish. When Hollywood was going to tell this story, they refused to have the real thing. So we basically went to great lengths to create, it cost about close to $3,000 to create an exact copy. They used that to raise $12 million to fund the movie called The Possession that's out.
Wow. So the story on the Dibbuk Box that I read is that a woman by the name of Sophie, the woman was Sophie, and she practiced, they did seances and stuff. I read this somewhere, that they did seances, and this was in the Holocaust, during the Holocaust in Germany, and in Poland, I guess it was. She's from Poland, and they were doing seances. They wanted to put some kind of a curse on Hitler, and then everything went awry, and so somehow they were able to get whatever that entity was that came into that room with them. They were able to get it in the box?
Well, correct. Sophie actually was one of the members of the seance group. It was Havila, who was actually a little bit older, and was the one who was kind of the at least maybe more prominent in working. And they really were trying to cross to the other side. These, in the mid-30s and late 30s, obviously in Germany and in Poland, wherever Jews were at, they could see that things were happening, the programs were more severe, and that something was different. And even worldwide, there was a statement that the spiritual, I guess you call it the veil, was actually a lot thinner because things were happening spiritually, maybe because of this, the deaths that were coming and the global impact of this war that Germany started. Basically, they were trying to find out information and turn to the seance and the other side to see if they could get information. It wasn't so much that they were fighting Hitler as much as they were just fighting to get any information or any advantage. But they themselves felt that once things started getting, as they were contacting the spiritual world, it would tell them things that were actually embarrassing and hurtful, and they decided this was not a good thing, and they would try to contain it.
Okay, but Jason, where did this story come from?
This story comes from Kevin telling the story of what he found out from the family that had the box.
Okay, and the family gave him this information?
He, once we met, said that he went back to find out what the story was. He went through the auctioneers and was able to reconnect to the family. And actually, because Portland is a fairly, not really the biggest community in the world, it's a pretty tight community, he was actually somewhat familiar with the family, he said. And this is what leads me to believe, how involved is Kevin with the family itself. I mean, he certainly has done what he can to protect their privacy and stuff in this story. But I have to say that the Dibbuk Box itself, when presented to Jewish museums, rabbis, people in the Kabbalah, they don't doubt that it's Jewish-made. There's just too many things about it that someone like, I don't know, Noreen, I'm assuming you're not Jewish, but I'm Methodist. If you're not Jewish, there are certain things you just couldn't even probably figure out to make something like this. So,
was that box, then the box was presented to other Jewish rabbis so they could inspect it to be verified that it was authentic?
Certainly, yes. I've worked with female rabbi Lynn Goldstein from St. Louis, Missouri. I've worked with Rabbi Golem, who is in Sheffield, UK. The Rabbi Winkler he wrote the book, The Dibbok, but they've seen at least pictures, good quality images and such, and have an opportunity to see the writing and feel pretty confident in that it's of Jewish origin.
Jason, before Kevin had the box and the family had the box before it went up on auction, did they experience anything with it? Like, how did they deal with what was in the box?
The story was that it was a very private piece of just Havilah. The elder, Sophie, outlived Havilah, so she became the person to tell the story of what had really happened. But supposedly Havilah lived to a ripe old age of 103 and was quite healthy. And when she died, I think that this thing is described more as a prayer box. The granite stone, and you've got a picture right now up that you can see of the Dibbuk Box actually in the ark, which is a protective ark with the gold around it. It did not come in that. That is what I was told to do to calm it, was to create this piece that it could set inside. But this appears to be more like an altar, a prayer item. And so the thought was that Havilah, who created this, and it's not the original, by the way, the one that was created at the time of the seance in the mid-30s, in the war it was lost. And besides, they never actually captured the spirit correctly anyway. So it was after the war, they recreated a version of the Dibbuk Box to hold the spirit, to undo what they did. And so that's what this latest version represents. And it was actually using things that were available in the late 50s and early 60s, such as the wine cabinet, but then the candlestick from the 1890s. Again, pieces were brought together to create this, but when you really look at it, I've come to grow that I'm not fearful of it being evil. It's more of, if you pray to it and wish upon it, it will take effect. And prayer itself is nothing more than wishing. All denominations that use prayer you're asking for something to happen, almost miraculously. You know, I want health, I want wealth, I want my family to be safe. It's almost like wishing. And so, you know, when we think of prayer and we think of wishing, there's really a kind of a fine line. They're some ways the same thing. But this was a box that was used, I believe, as an altar to pray to. And that's why I'm cautious about it, because whenever it has been prayed to, things happen. Not always the way you want them to happen, but they do happen. And if we were going to say, what is the prayer of the Dibbuk Box from Avila, it was to why did the Holocaust, this is what consistently comes back from the family. She was, and the family was, driven by, why did my family have to die? My parents, my siblings, my children, my neighbors. Why? What was the rationale of all this craziness? And that was the prayer. I think that was presented to the Dibbuk Box.
So the Dibbuk Box doesn't have a spirit in it? A bad spirit?
All I'm saying is, I don't know what generates it to make the wishes, but in this case, I think the wish was to know more about the Holocaust. And of all places for it to come, it came to Kirksville, Missouri. And oddly enough, if we were to say, well, what is the reason for the Holocaust? The simple answer is, well, Adolf Hitler. He was crazy, and he got everybody to follow him, and he did these things. But really, if you go, what inspired Hitler is when he really failed politically and was in prison, he looked to America. And in America, from Kirksville, Missouri, a man was actually implementing sterilization laws, marriage laws, immigration restrictions, revocation of citizenship, all these things to make America a national, a greater nation. And Hitler said, aha, that's what we'll do in Germany. And he took the laws that were American laws and called them the Nuremberg laws and used those against the Jewish populations, the black populations, gays, the Roma, the gypsies. So there really is an odd connection to this instrument, this Dibbuk Box, coming to Kirksville, Missouri, where it landed.
Well, what is this about seeing...
And here's, Noreen, just so you know I'm not crazy about this, if you were to type in the name on a Google search, just type in Harry, Harry, and then Laughlin, Laughlin, and then type in Hitler. That's all you need to do in a Google search. You have all you need to read to show that all the things Hitler did were done in the United States decades before he started.
Well, okay, so the Dibbuk Box, I thought that that Kevin had an evil spirit in it. It was released because, and then they said that the mother had a stroke. They were having nightmares, and an old hag would appear, and I guess she would beat them up. What's that all about?
Well, those things still do happen, health issues and things with the box. All I'm saying is, you know, coming at it just from a basically pragmatic museum perspective, you know, what the item actually is historically and what's in it. The items are old. The box itself seems to be a unit. And, you know, is there a demon? Is there a spirit? Is it the old woman herself? I don't know, but something propels this thing to act. And you can call it a spirit. You can call it a demon. I don't know. But somehow this thing has a power about it. It would appear, because consistently things happen with it, not just, you know, with Havila's prayer, but with other prayers that have come since then from people to it. It seems to, again, be a container that if you want something from it, it will try to get you that. But always like the monkey paw, I don't know if you're familiar with that story, it was a wishing, you wish on the hand of a monkey. The thing is, you might get your wish, but it might not be the way you wanted it. And I would say that is the Dibbuk Box itself is you can wish to it, but the way that it answers your wish might not be the way that you would like it to happen.
Well, after Kevin got rid of the box, did his mother improve?
Not really. The funny thing about it is the sounds, the spirits, the things. I mean, they would have what you would consider a poltergeist, and to my knowledge, it's never left them.
So is Kevin experiencing problems still?
To my knowledge, I think since my sealing the box in this Jewish container with gold, it has been a lot less, like, numbed. But prior to that, things were just as active as they ever were.
To Kevin?
It's as if things never went away, and the same with the college kid to some degree.
Oh.
What I'm saying is something he felt shadowy, powerful, came with the box. But what that is, who's to say? I'm just saying that was the feeling. And the same with me. I felt a presence of something going on enough that I took it and moved it away from my house to a neighboring home that I owned that was empty, and tried to stick whatever it was over there. So, again, you know, when you say, well, does it have a spirit, doesn't it have a spirit? I don't know. There's something odd about this container.
Now, I read that you got some acacia wood, and you built an enclosure for this box, and the box is inside this acacia wood?
Right. That's what you were, when you showed the picture earlier of it, with the gold leafing, that is the acacia ark. It's called a hakadosh, but it is actually a container, a spiritual container. And that, you can see in the picture now, that is the rules I was given through the Sefer HaRazam, which is an old book of mysteries. Now you're seeing on the screen the actual Dibbuk Box is inside this ark that was created from those 3 slabs of wood. And you might ask, well, how did you end up with an acacia tree? Because the rule was also, with religious things, you could not just make a box out of plywood. It had to be the sacred wood of King Solomon's temple, which is called acacia. It grows in the desert. It's very slow and sappy and impenetrable because of it grows in the harshest conditions. So the wood itself is almost like, you know, steel or iron, and it's almost indestructible. So that is the wood. As a matter of fact, when the Amish tried to cut the wood, they couldn't. That is how amazing this material is. And so I was told, get one tree and fashion the container out of one tree. Now, where do you get an acacia tree in the United States? But oddly enough, a Jewish family that had planted this tree after the war and grew it for 50 years during a series of hurricanes in 2004, when I got the box, it pulled down one of these trees. And once a tree is down in your yard, it's garbage. And so a person who works with wood came and gathered it for free, cut it into these pieces, and thought he would make a good bit of money. But what's unusual about it is that because it grew in Florida, it had air pockets, so nobody wanted it. So I literally got the tree, I think, these pieces of wood, all 3 of them, I think for $150, and shipping was another $50. So it was almost a miracle to actually even get an entire acacia tree, as you're seeing, to make this art.
So now this box is encased. It has gold on the inside. You put it on the inside. It's encased in this wood, and you have it in a secret location in a dark space, correct?
I actually 6 months ago buried it, but I guess that counts as dark. It is in the acacia ark, which is almost indestructible, inside a plastic military case, which is also almost indestructible. So even though it's buried, it could sit the way it is for another 1,000 years and nothing would happen to it.
So when you acquired this box off of eBay and you brought it home with you, you were experiencing things as well. What about your family and friends that came in contact with the box?
Well, that's the thing. Prophetic dreams, illnesses, sudden burns, all these things would happen to my family and myself as a result of having this thing. Shadowy appearances. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying there wasn't a spirit with it. Weird things did happen, but I don't understand them. They're not something that I pursue. I'm not really a paranormal person. I don't like horror movies. I have a curiosity of life after death, as I would think most people do, but I don't dwell on it nonstop and make my life. I don't go on ghost haunted houses. These are things that I just don't do.
So did you brought a rabbi over to your house to see the box?
Yes. She was teaching at the university in Kirksville, and I actually learned my basic Hebrew from Lynn. Female rabbis have been in existence since about 1976, and I think she's been a rabbi now for about 8 years or so. And we became friends because of my desire to learn Hebrew, so I could more understand the prayers and the pieces of this artifact. And through that, talked about the Holocaust, this Harry Laughlin, and we became friendly this way, and how she became familiar then with the Dibbuk Box.
Oh, so she didn't know anything about the Dibbuk Box before then?
Nope, I was just there taking language.
Oh. I was just wondering if you had gotten an old rabbi that may have known about the Dibbuk Box and the folklore behind it, what he would have said to you. You know, if something else would have been done.
Right. Well, the shaman that wrote the book, the Dibbuk, and actually, and that's, I think it's, looking, I was just going to go through and see if I could come up with basically more on him. But Winkler, who wrote the book basically on the Dibbuk, basically he would be what I would consider a more experienced person, and actually is a shaman and works with the Kabbalah and things like that.
Now I understand that now, because I did see the movie The Possession, scared me, and when then Tim told me that he had a Dibbuk Box and was going to bring it over to my house, well, that really kind of I wasn't too sure about that, but I understand that the movie The Possession really wasn't taken for fact. That it was really exploded in you know, exaggerated everything. That's not really the true story.
Right, and again, getting back to, you know, Gershom Winkler, who wrote, was familiar with the movie going on and stuff, and again wrote a little credit for the back of the book. He again does these nature kind of communing with those that are Jewish and not necessarily, with working with the spiritual world, which he's very much in tune to. But the movie itself really went a whole different direction. A lot of people said if you'd stuck closer to the story in the book, you know, Kevin, his mother, the things that happened there, the college student, the things that happened there at my family, that it would have been a more believable and maybe even a scarier movie.
Oh, I thought it was pretty scary. I loved the movie. So, so how are you now today? How are things with you today? Oh, I also heard you say on one of your interviews that things are your aging process is reversing.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, before the Dibbuk Box was in my life, and I was at that time, I think about 44 years old or so, I did a health test, and I wasn't unhealthy, but you have to do a health test to use the equipment. So they just want to make sure you're not going to kill yourself lifting weights and running on the treadmill. So I thought, you know what? I'm in my mid-40s. I need to get healthier. Let me go over there and do this. So I did this test, but then the Dibbuk Box came in my life, and I never went back over there to lift a single weight. And so I decided more recently I've been feeling good. It's like, oh gosh, I'm in my mid-50s now. Time to go over there and do my test so I can use the equipment. And actually every test I was actually healthier, weight-wise, pulse-wise, blood pressure, flexibility. And one of the things is at that age I was very gray, hair and everything, and it's all just kind of reversed itself. So maybe I can live 103 like Kabbalah, who owned it. Maybe that's one of the tricks. But one of the reasons it was put in the gold line arc was to calm it, and it seems to have done that. And so that happened about 5 years ago, and things were calmer. Only in the last 6 months did I finally bury the Dibbuk Box, what's odd, though, is the night that I buried the Dibbuk Box, the ground opened up into a well, and we actually walk out at night and usually dump off the scraps from the meal to the animals that live in the woods behind our home. And one of the things is it very easily, my wife or I, who do this every night, could have fallen into a 30-foot well filled with freezing water because it's groundwater, and nobody would have known it.
Oh, my God.
And so it's just kind of one of those odd things that the night that the box got buried, the ground opens up in my yard.
Did you take a picture of it?
I do have a picture of it.
Oh, I wish you had sent that to me.
I can.
Oh, it's,
Like I said,
can you do it?
Because someone else had asked, you know, and so I just went out and took a shot of it. I've not been able to get, you know, how do you work with a 30-foot hole? So the only thing
Can you email that picture to Tim right now? I'd love to see it.
Well, while we're talking, I will go to my Hotmail account and see if I can find it.
Okay.
Just keep chatting.
Hey, Jason, how has the box changed your views on the paranormal? Because I imagine, you know, being, you know, a professor at a college and doing the type of work you do, I would imagine you're quite skeptical of certain things that, you know. But has the box?
I certainly would say that. I mean, I was even skeptical of you know, what happens when we die. My thought was, you know, we die, it's black, it's nice, big deal. I certainly would say that in the process of the last 9 to 10 years, I've become more spiritual, and I, you know, think that's kind of fascinating because I you know, have gone through this as I've worked with rabbis, but not just with rabbis, but people of other faiths that are curious about the Dibbuk Box. East Indian Indians have seen it and say that a scent comes out of it that is where their shaman, their religious leaders, when they call spirits, are able to draw an ash, and there's a scent to the ash. And I have to say, since the Dibbuk Box has been put in the art, it's created this very addictive, kind of a heady scent that, again, keeps getting stronger and stronger. And when these East Indians smelled it, they were familiar with it from their own country, from India, and smelling this scent of the spiritual world, so to speak. So
where's the scent? The scent is coming from the
it comes from the box itself. It's not really,
but the box is in another location.
It's just the whole box, kind of.
Now, Jason, a while back I talked to Abby Eden, who did I think it was around Halloween time, she did a story on the Dibbuk Box.
Yeah, Abby was a great gal, yeah.
Yeah, she had told me when I met her when I was out in Kansas City that they had a ton of technical difficulties putting the story together.
Almost everybody has. I mean, if you look at Mysterious Universe, who was probably one of the first to actually document, you know, the Dibbuk Box, probably soon after I got, they went off the air completely for a year. Other dark matters, many people that, like you guys, do a story. You may guys, this might be your last show for a while, but no, but seriously, strange things, Ground Zero, Clyde did a show and filmed it and said, my God, you can just see it's like everything's nuts here, and people were breaking out in blisters and as if they'd been burned.
Yeah, but wait a minute. But Jason, I saw that interview. What Kevin did was he brought in the so-called sister box to the Dibbuk Box, and he opened it up right at the studio, and the host wasn't aware of what he was doing. And he said, "You mean to tell me you just opened that box?" And Kevin said, "Yes." And he was pulling out the items. And after he did that, then they lost internet service. There was a hot spot in the studio, and things really started to happen. But they weren't aware that he was going to do that. So they say.
Well, and yes, that's right. And I wasn't aware either. I've always known that the family actually created several of these boxes.
Wait a minute. Whose family?
The original one who created the first one. The family from Poland. That this was not the only one.
You mean he bought... Okay, did he go back to purchase more? He said this was the sister box that he had opened on that show.
Right. What had happened was when he went back to the family and was questioning about it, it's like, look, we were going to call back another one, and they basically, wherever they were keeping the other one, got it and gave it to him, said, we don't want it. We don't want either of them. We don't want you in our lives, and take it. So I've been familiar, probably, that was about 2005. So yeah, it's been at least 7 years.
Oh my.
That I've always known that he's had the second one.
How many more are there?
Well, at the time he thought there were at least 3 according to the family, but only 2 of them have actually been, brought back. I think soon after, when the family realized the interest in them, they just shut down, according to Kevin, all communication about these things, and that's it. So if there are other ones out there, he certainly isn't, they're not calling them home.
Now, is it possible that there are other people other than this family that also have that kind of a Dibbuk box?
I had talked to a gal that worked in Colorado, and her mother was combination Greek and Prussian, German, and she was familiar with other Germans creating similar kind of boxes, and usually they generate them in a cemetery. The funny thing is the Dibbuk box works best with the spiritual energy of a cemetery, I guess. So.
Really? But it's supposed to be Jewish folklore, these boxes.
Right, well, I mean, it's Jewish folklore, but like most cultures, I mean, the Hispanic and Mexican population, Latinos, they create these kind of altars with similar kind of pieces as prayer boxes.
But they're using them as prayer boxes, not so much of getting an entity to go inside the box and lock it up.
Well, right, but the thing about it too is, do we really know what the first owner meant when she was saying there was a Dibbuk in it? Because I think there's just as much chance that just to keep someone out of your stuff. I mean, it doesn't mean it wasn't religious and very important, but grandmothers all the time. I mean, there's a boogeyman in my sewing room. Do not go in there. Don't mess with my stuff. Does it mean there's a boogeyman in there, or is it just a way of them keeping you out of their stuff?
What was the rationale behind putting the box in the ground? I mean, did anybody said ever come up to you and just say to destroy it, or was there a way to? Would that make things worse if you just burned it? Did anybody ever?
I think that was my fear, was to get rid of it or damage it. You would basically be stuck with it, and that certainly was something that I wasn't wanting. So, I was very cautious about it. And I've continued to be, I'm online, continuing to try to find these images.
What was really interesting, Jason, about when I talked to Abby, is she actually showed me a photo of her computer screen right before it crashed. You know how sometimes when your computer crashes, the image stays stuck on your screen for a little bit? Well, what was interesting is the image that she showed me was a picture of a face, a woman's face.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it was creepy.
I actually lost my computer multiple times, and the thing is, it literally would freeze on an image, which instead of just going down and being gone, the blue screen of death or whatever, it would lock on. And the things that usually I had trouble with were when people were telling me, burn it, blah, 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 and in mid-sentence of reading some of these things, basically lose the whole computer.
Right.
And so I basically try to stay away from that kind of stuff.
Now, what happened to the college kid that had it? Because in the episode of Paranormal Witness, he looked like he got the worst of it by far. His hair was falling out.
In Paranormal Witness, it's his roommate, the kid that told me about it. The kid that actually owned it has never... I never even met him. He wouldn't even deliver it to me. He gave it to his friend. I couldn't pick him out on the street if he came up to me. What I'm saying is he wants to absolutely have nothing to do with this at all. For whatever reason. I'm not saying he's scared of it or hates it, or I don't know. He won't talk about it at all.
So, Jason, since you're having good luck now and your aging process is reversing, did you say any prayers to the Dibbuk box?
I only once for actually created the ark to hold it, they knew what it was. And one of their family members, the kid that actually helped build the ark, his youngest brother, who was at the time 14 months or so, was having severe problems, wasn't walking. What they determined was he had a brain tumor. And his head had grown about 3-4 times the size of a normal child's head. And the child was going to have surgery. And in that surgery, major brain surgery. And he asked me, the kid was taken to Mexico, that's where they do their surgeries. He'd asked me to do something to help his brother. And I said, what do you mean do? He goes, do something with that box to help my brother. And so I certainly couldn't deny him that. So I got out I could read Hebrew. I got out the Sefer HaRazam. I looked at how to help an injured person. You needed oil that was 7 years old. You needed gold. You needed certain spices, which at the time, 2,000 years ago, would have been rare. Today you can get this stuff like saffron. And basically concocted this material with the gold, the oil, writing, magic writing as they call it, and then had to read over and over the angels. Because when you're asking, by the way, for Hebrew mysticism or Jewish mysticism, you're really only asking for angels to intervene. And so in the prophet, it had to be a certain time at night. You had to read this thing for hours. And when I finally finished, it just started misting. I was outside at night. The mist hit this little container of this stuff. It exploded, which meant that glass was never going to be used again. I buried it, and the child went into surgery the next day, and they removed about half of his brain. The family came over because we had the phone, obviously, the only communication to the family in Mexico for them. And they came over, and as soon as the child came out of surgery, he was completely alert, aware, and could talk, and had no loss of any physical anything. He was just as he went in, except no brain, no tumor. And he came out with this ability, a savant, to sing. He can memorize any melody, kind of like almost like a Mozart, and he has a voice kind of an adult now, and it's really kind of freakish. The kid's now about 7 years old, but he has this beautiful voice, angelic voice, and music is just a child's play to him, and he's perfectly fine.
You said he was a savant?
Well, his musical ability is genius. He's missing half his brain.
Oh my God.
So that was the only time I've ever prayed to the Dibbuk Box for something to happen.
Wow.
So, and that was it.
So the Dibbuk Box is no longer causing any...
No, not for me. That's what I'm saying. It's put away. It's almost like that's why I never got rid of it to begin with, was fear of losing complete control. So it scared me, and I felt completely myself having problems. I thought the worst thing I could do is play on that fear and get rid of it, because Kevin never was happy after he got rid of it. I don't get the feeling the college student who sold it to me was content after it was gone. So I certainly looked at the predecessors and said, the last thing I want to do is get rid of this thing. And so that's why I kept it until I figured it out. And now again, it is away, and hopefully it's not a problem for anyone.
So what do you think about other Dibbuk boxes that may be on eBay?
What I'm saying is, when this came out, it truly is what it is, a spiritual prayer box or whatever you want to call it. I think the others that have come out, some of them, well, I think they're knockoffs. But here's the other thing too: if you look up what's called sympathetic magic, that if the intent is there and you mimic something, you can have the same effect. So what I'm saying is, yeah, why not? Why can't people create Dibbuk boxes? I think they can. The other is called contagion. Of course, again, I'm not into the paranormal, but I certainly read up on this item, and that contagion means if this thing touches or has access to a similar box, it would put its power into it. So sympathetic, making something like it, or having this real one touch a box similar would create, I think, a similar power, supposedly.
So when Kevin got when Kevin originally got this box, was it all sealed with wax, and it was all sealed up, so he had a hard time getting into it, or did it just have a lock on it? He just opened it up.
It just had a lock, and he just undid the lock.
So it wasn't sealed with wax, but it did have a prayer on the outside of it.
Right, it had a prayer on the outside, which would be a protection prayer, and it did have wax. Kevin never noticed it, but I used a black light to look for genetic material, any type of human residue, and that's when I discovered the wax on the outside, as if the candle had been lit and dripped. It wasn't, again, apparent just looking at it, but under a black light, it just jumped out, and then I could find it very easily.
So somebody else that would mimic this box on eBay, because they probably saw the movie Possession, and they would do the same thing, then try and put some personal items in the box, a picture, maybe a picture of the person, and try and do some kind of whatever it is that they do to get an entity to go into a box and then close it up and seal it. Now, if they did do that, and they feel were able to get this bad entity into the box, would the box have to been prayed over by a rabbi?
Sorry, did you do that before?
Yeah, I was gonna say, where'd Tim go?
Oh, the whole box moved?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Tim's Dibbuk box on the table moved.
As you were asking about.
As I was talking about the Dibbuk box.
Sorry.
We heard a noise.
See,
I was talking and I wasn't paying any attention, but Tim got up and he goes, "Did you hear that?" He goes, "The whole Dibbuk box moved."
I thought it was a cat under the table, but there's nothing there. The whole thing moved.
Oh my God. Okay, so like in the box that Tim has,
Right.
it wasn't prayed over, or what did they call it, Tim?
I don't know.
It wasn't blessed by a rabbi. It was blessed by somebody else
in the church.
In the church, but does it have to be done by a rabbi?
No, well, that's what I'm saying. There's no fast and hard rule for spiritual things. One thing I will say is, since all this has started, the communications, and you're breaking up on my end, I hope you can hear me fine, but all I'm saying is I know that the line has been strange ever since, but that's what I'm saying is there is a sympathetic magic that passes through this item, and even being aware of it, it almost it gives it that little power. Just because it's sealed in a way, I'm not saying it has no power, I'm just saying it seems more controlled, it seems less threatening, but it's kind of odd what's happening, but no different than voodoo. All I'm saying is think of the Dibbuk box as in most religions. If you put things in it and you pray and try to make things happen, don't be surprised if you can. So yes, I think there can be other Dibbuk boxes or spiritual boxes, or however you want to call them.
So with this box that Tim has, should he put gold in it as well, and then do the same thing that you did with yours?
Well, my directives came from, based on the Hebrew writing. Keep in mind, King Solomon supposedly used demons and talked to the dead using a ring with the words of God. Now the thing is, the Jews had many, many, many names for God. It's God of Father, God of helping your illness, God for the protector, God the family member, but each has a different name, and the Hebrew language itself doesn't have what we consider vowel. So speaking it was something that was passed on, but he had a ring with the Hebrew letters that he knew how to pronounce them, and the vibration, the sound of calling on these letters gave him the chance to talk to the spiritual world. Oddly enough, that's what the Lord of the Rings is. It's just a steal from the Jewish King Solomon's ring.
Do you want to tell them of your experiences with the box?
Oh, Tim.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I acquired this box. I'd say about 8 months ago now, and try not to read into. I got it because I was curious. I mean, I'll admit, I heard some of the stories, and I was
bought
curious.
it off of
eBay.
eBay.
I bought it off of eBay, and I was like, I thought, well, what the heck, I'll see if there's anything to it. And the first day when it showed up at my door, it literally smelled like someone pissed on my door in the hallway. I can't describe it. I know, like, even on Paranormal Witness, someone said they smelled piss, but for whatever reason, it smelled like someone urinated on my front door. And never ever had someone do that. My door was not wet or anything like that. And I didn't bring it into my house. I left it into the UPS shipping box. I didn't want, I was kind of weirded out. So I just immediately put it in my outside storage. A couple of days later, I heard, I would be watching TV with my son, and the TV would, so I would start to have electronic malfunctions, just like weird static sounds. And then it was like, I don't know, maybe a week after that, I was sitting in my living room reading a book, and the shower door, I have a shower door in my bathroom, it completely shattered. Just for no reason. The contractor that came over, he said he's never seen anything like it. A door shatter like that. It was a 7-foot high, safety tempered glass door. And I've kind of just been trying to ignore.
But there was something else.
Yeah, there's there's other weird things, voices I've heard in the apartment, and I haven't been really sleeping too good. But at this point, I've been kind of telling people I just kind of want to get rid of it. But after hearing your experiences, maybe the best thing would be for me just to retain it and then try to bury it or something. I don't know, but I kind of told Noreen, like, she asked me today if I wanted to bring the box, and I kind of purposely left home without it. And then she called me and said, "Oh, do you have it in your car?" And I just don't even like being near it. Like, I told her tonight, if she wants to open it, she can, but I don't want really anything to do with it.
Well, and so, Tim, I didn't know anything about these things, but there's been enough people with Kabbalah backgrounds. Again, because of the Hebrew writing, I certainly had a population that was more understanding of the mysticism, because almost all of our magic, all of our ritual comes from the Jewish faith for thousands of years. So yes, they have an understanding that goes beyond most of us with our backgrounds. But what I was told by these people with the Kabbalah background is that the urine smell in feces is oppression. It's caused typically by a demon, but the idea is to make you fear and submit. And that's what was odd about this, is our home doesn't have this urine smell, pissy smell, would just appear out of nowhere, but equally a sickly sweet jasmine smell, almost like if you've ever smelled an animal that's dead, and it's almost, it's obnoxious, but there's a sweet decay that's just the grossest smell, but you certainly would identify it as a sweet kind of odor, a jasmine-y odor. And so all I'm telling you is that that's where the scent things come. And the box I have has picked up a third scent that almost, since it's been contained, once you get it out, and I have to be honest, you think about it, it's a very addictive scent, but I don't get it out. But it's always there when you do, as if to reward you. Putting things in the ground draws the energies. The Jews have done this with, they have done amulets and things like this for hundreds of years. When you no longer need these pieces of paper with the prayers and the different writings on it, you take them back to the synagogue, to the church, and put them in a box. I think it's a ginza box, a ginza. But anyway, when the box is full, the whole thing goes out and is buried to take out the power. And so that's one of the reasons I decided to contain, not to destroy the Dibbuk box, but then also to simultaneously bury it. And so you could put it in a container that would, to some degree, keep it from being damaged, but also, I think, getting it in the ground. If you're having problems, you might find that would help. Going out and getting gold leaf and doing what I did, that worked with the Hebrew nature of my box. Would that work with your box? I don't know.
Yeah, one of the weirdest things that happened, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I was telling Noreen that 2 months ago you brought me over and you wanted to see it for yourself the first time, so I brought over the box and she had actually opened it and and stuff, and after the show she resealed it and then wrapped it up in a cloth. I brought
and
that
taped
and taped it. What was really weird is let's say 3 weeks later, I don't know the exact time frame, but I think it was 3 or 2 weeks later, I woke up and there's a picture, a black and white picture that was left in the box. That was one of the pieces of contents. That picture wound up for some reason on my nightstand next to my bed. And it freaked the heck out of me. I immediately went back out to the storage where I dropped it off, and it was sealed shut. So how that got out of the box, I don't know. It still kind of dumbfounds me to this day. But have you ever had any, when you would place the box at your, I think it was like your rental property or the house down the street, did you ever notice that the box was in a different position than what you had left it at?
No, because when I put the box anywhere, it typically was on a bed of sea salt with basil, and then smudged over it with sage, which seems to have a sealing effect. However, that being said, insects are drawn to it, which again is a Kabbalah thing. They sense the energy, but they don't want to be on it. They just want to be near it. It's almost like basking in the sunlight. It's kind of odd, but bugs come from it, and bugs that are not in the middle of winter. Honeybees have flown out of where the Dibbuk Box was at. This is ridiculous. There's no hive. There's nothing. Honeybees don't survive on their own. And what I'm saying is just strange things like that. Insects dying in white mold, and spiders have died. Usually when a spider dies, it, like humans, you relax, and most people actually defecate on themselves or end up, with piss in their pants upon death because your whole body relaxes. It's true of spiders. When they die, they drop out of the web. But these spiders, all probably dozens of them, died in their webs and just were stuck there. So some weird things have happened kind of like that with insects and things around them and stuff like that. Strange life, strange wind sounds around the Dibbuk Box. Again, in a sealed, airtight area, it doesn't make any sense.
So when you got the box, did you already have like a plan of action, like to deal with any of these things that were happening to you, or did you just kind of like, how did you come up with the sea salt thing and all that? Do you already have an idea of what to do, or did you have someone assisting you with that?
Well, right, no, I had no idea of anything. When I bought it, I had no idea of what would happen tomorrow with it. I assumed nothing. Mm-hmm. It was other people that had came forward that had worked with the paranormal, such as people that who said, well, the Greeks, some of the Greeks said, we found even from thousands of years ago clay containers where you took two bowls, put hair and things that are spiritual, like a Dibbuk Box like your own, an animal, a special stone, hair perhaps, coins, and then they would seal the two bowls together and bury them in the cemetery to power it. So I'm just saying that things like this have been created for thousands of years. I really have had other people from all these different cultures help me out, but no, I had no clue as what to do. This isn't Methodist faith,
yeah.
Which is what I was brought up with. So
yeah, because
Methodists are pretty like religious light, and you can drink whatever you can drink. It's not the end of the world, and you're pretty forgiving. And I always think of it as, again, we're not hardcore spiritually in that sense. I think we're pretty even keel, so to speak. So yeah, I was completely unprepared for it.
Well, I just don't see how you can contain an entity in a box. They say.
Let me explain how it happens, Doreen. It's a spiritual thing. Therefore, what does a spiritual thing want more than anything? Kind of almost like us. We're physical, so what do we want? We want the spiritual. You never like what you have. You always want what you don't have. But think of the spiritual world as actually having no true physical connection. So when you tell basically a spiritual entity that these are your things and they're yours and you can have them, it's almost like guarding and being obsessed themselves with the physical world. And that's what contains them. Are they truly trapped? No. But it is the concept of being trapped that traps them. An example of this would be, and I've used this before, is in India when they get these elephants and they're young, they will rope them to a tree. And these are just little elephants taken from their mothers. And they'll get to the end of the rope and they'll tug and they can't go anywhere. The little elephant grows and grows and grows, and now is this massive animal. But do you know what? You can tie it with a piece of kite string, because when it feels the tension, it doesn't try to pull because it thinks it's trapped, but it's not. And so there's an example of mentally the elephant has found itself defeated. Or people who live with their possessions, hoarders. I mean, what better example of a demon wanting something than people who can't let go of anything, and they end up they can't even let go of their pizza boxes. And what's really weird about this is they've trapped themselves with these things mentally. And so a spirit actually, if you offer them hair and coins, which we think are kind of like, wow, it's kind of creepy, but time means nothing to them. So these possessions that fit in different periods of time are attractive, and so in theory, it traps itself by giving the things and now saying they're yours. Nobody will bother them. It stays with its stuff. Just like with someone who never has enough money and never spends the money. It's almost kind of sad that they become trapped by their possessions but never enjoy them. So that's how I see it. It could be wrong, but at least it's how I understand it.
Yeah, that was just really a hard one for me to believe, because from being in the paranormal field for so many years, supposedly a spirit can't be trapped. It's not stuck. It can come and go as it pleases. So if it got in the box, it should be able to get out of the box. I just don't see how it can be permanently trapped in a box.
Well, but it goes back to the concept of if something is convinced that it's contained, it doesn't matter that it's not. It thinks it is. That's the way I can come at it. People trap themselves all the time, and they're not trapped, but they think they are. And I don't know how a spiritual being might, what I'm saying in the same essence, believe that it's contained when it's not. I don't know.
So what's happening now with you in the box? It's just buried now, and that's it?
Right, I've pretty much gone on with my life. Again, I've got a lot of other things going on that I enjoy and research and do, and my kids and family, wife, friends, and so again, I do enjoy those things. As the rabbis that I know, everything has a reason, and I guess that's the other thing too. Is the Dibbuk Box itself could have just, they don't believe there's no lack of a purpose in anything that occurs. And even as I told you, if you type in the name Harry Laughlin and Hitler, you will find a reason, a story that's been forgotten that the Dibbuk Box has uncovered. That in itself is pretty bizarre. But we're on this journey. We all get to the end of it, and the idea is to learn as much as we can in the process. But now that I've grown quite a bit, I believe there will be a spiritual world, and probably we'll know more when we're in that. I don't necessarily know that as a spirit I'd want to come back, but, some people may feel they're trapped in this physical world and not want to let themselves go onto the spiritual either. So, again, when we trap ourselves, we do it ourselves.
Do you think that if ever a need came again, that you would need to pray for somebody or a member of your family for better health or to help them heal? Would you go to the Dibbuk Box and do that?
That's an interesting question. question, Noreen. I certainly, I would be very cautious, but if I ever did anything like that again, it would be like for the Amish, it would be for someone else. Again, I think it's probably best to, if you're going to try to help or pray or do something, that you do it for others. And as hard as it would be, I'm just saying I would worry about trying to use it for my own self-interest. I think the Dibbuk Box works best when it's used for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Is there any talk about a sequel to that Possession movie?
Certainly, from a Hollywood perspective, it's made them a lot of money. It's been very successful. The DVD is popular. It's very different. And so I think they might want to maybe this time tell more of the real story. But I think there's a good possibility of there being a sequel. That seems to happen when a movie is successful, and it certainly has been successful. So I guess my thought would be if they ask, kind of like our dialogue tonight, I would just give them the information that I have, access to my diary, which I kept daily, so it tell them the things that I encountered. And if they wanted to do it, fine. If not, I'm okay with that too.
Did anybody in chat have any questions?
No, I think we're good.
No.
Should we show them the box? You want to open the box?
Yeah, and let them know too. Viewers also on the website, on Live SyFy's website, is the information on how to.
There's the book. There's Jason's book.
Yeah.
The Amazon link. So if anybody's interested in reading more about Jason's story and about the Dibbuk Box, you can purchase his book. The link's right below the chat. And yeah.
And tonight, when I get home, I'm at my office right now. I will get you the images from the opened hole, and you can post those too if you want.
Jason, do you think that in some weird way you were meant to have the box? That it was fated for you to...
That's the thing is, I think what the rabbis I've talked with and Kabbalah students, they said that there's no accidents in their faith, and therefore, and I have to say, but why a non-Jew? And he said, actually, you'll look at it closer than we would. We would take things for granted. Because you're a stranger in a strange world, you will question everything, and that would be closer to getting the right answer on this than someone who is overconfident and ignoring the clues, including the Shema. On the back of the box, the prayer is actually written without the Word of God. It's written kind of like symbolically, but when rabbis were reading it, they kept saying, there's nothing, this is just the prayer, this is just the prayer. And I said, but you just told me if it says God, you can't bury it. Why was this woman going to bury it with her? And they said, well, that's puzzling. And I said, so you guys are telling me you do one thing and now you're doing something else. Why would she bury it? And then they re-looked at the prayer and goes, oh my gosh, where it's supposed to say God, it's been altered just enough to make it kind of technically you could get away with it. So what I'm saying, there was an example where I was challenging them, and when they really looked, they saw something they didn't see before. So I think that's why they said I was to kind of unravel the mystery. I think I have, and I think it's kind of fascinating. I hope people are better for what we've learned about the Holocaust and how we treat other people and maybe the spiritual world. But I'd be excited to see your Dibbuk Box. Now, keep in mind, it's the intent. It didn't take a rabbi. This woman had an intent, and her friends had an intent, and they put the material together, and they used their own human energy, their own human spirit, and that's what powered it and created it. So I do think that you can do these things. I would be careful doing them.
Do you want to see the box? We're gonna.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, you can go ahead.
You want?
Yeah, I don't want to touch it.
Okay. See now. Jason, can I ask you another question? See, I don't believe this. I don't believe it. Will that protect me if I don't believe in it?
Well, one of the things I did, Noreen, is the whole time I was researching the Dibbuk Box, I didn't really have my family involved because I think the less they knew, the safer they were. Again, not being aware is probably a protection. Not believing in it, well, good.
I believe I'm protected. Okay.
You sound like the Lion in the Wizard of Oz. I don't believe. And you know what? He's believing the whole time and goes running out the window. So go ahead and don't believe, but you're not fooling me.
Thanks, Jason.
All right.
Okay, so is there enough light?
Yeah, there's enough light. You might want to bring these candles away here, just so you can better see the. I'll just make sure that the.
All right, so so.
Yeah, I just don't really want to mess with this thing anymore.
All right, so where's the Jewish writing on this?
I don't think there is any.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So Jason, this box does not have any Jewish writing on it.
Yeah, well, and they don't have to. I mean, there's a lot of voodoo items that I think are just as spiritual, and they have nothing to do with the Jews or the Hebrew language.
Okay. Now, this is the law. This is just a lever, and it did have a wax seal on it.
All the way around.
All the way around it. Okay, so I guess open it this way, Tim?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so here's the inside. And it just has one of these little cheap tin things here. And I guess it was for the candle. Oh, this was for the candle, I guess. Candle here. There's a little like a jewelry ceramic thing which got broken. Now this is some kind of oh God, what do they call those? There's a name for this kind of a rock.
Geode.
Geode. It's a geode.
You want to bring closer so you can see it to the camera?
It's a geode. It's like a purplish color, like an amethyst color. Can they see that?
Yeah.
Well, and do you know that geodes, I mean, again, all quartz contain more energy and more comes out than goes in. If you were to smack it, actually more energy could come out, and that's why if it has a battery quartz, that's why the granite is quartz. So in the Dibbuk Box, it is almost as if it has a battery. Also, granite and quartz can carry radioactivity. So there's two methods of energy in that thing.
Okay. A candlestick holder, a single candlestick holder, a doily that must have belonged to the woman, and
chicken bones. It looks like. I think those are chicken bones.
Some kind of bones, and it could. Tim thinks it could be. We're not quite sure
like
if
a wishbone or something, or a chicken bone, or
chicken
something.
or turkey or some kind of a bone. We don't know what this represents. Unless maybe she choked on it. I don't know. And then hair.
Like a lock of hair.
Here's a lock of hair. Lock of hair. And then the woman.
That picture.
They're assuming Tim. This has to be the picture of the woman.
Bring it closer. Yeah, I don't know. That was the picture that wound up on my nightstand, and it freaked. I don't know how it ended up there, but that was on my nightstand. Yeah.
Well, and of course that does appear to be a wishbone, and not so much. It's more, again, it goes back to the intent. That wishbone has been broken and put in there, and so you wonder if the person who had the bigger side actually got their wish. But again, it's just like tossing coins in the fountain. Again, it's the intent. By thinking about something, you can make it happen. And so they made a wish, and they left the remnants of that wish in the box. So.
Now, Jason, do you know a Hebrew prayer that you could say right now for this box?
It might not even be
to
Hebrew,
help
though.
Tim?
Well, it might not even be a Hebrew thing, or it could just be.
You really threw me off because I was not prepared for that. But again, I'm not Jewish. I certainly know that those of the faith would have no trouble putting some words over it.
Could you do that?
Again, you've got me a little bit speechless on this. Because again, it seems to have all the things you would need to power a wish or a thought. And again, that's how powerful we really are as humans. I mean, we're spiritual beings in a physical body, not bodies with a spiritual presence. It's the other way around. And so I'm not surprised that you could put your energy into it. Once you, but here's the thing is once you kind of believe, you've given it a power, and that power might resonate in that amethyst geode or quartz stone. Again, there's all kinds of ways that can be powered. So I would still agree that the best thing would be to contain it in something that will protect it, usually a plastic container, it doesn't have to be large, and putting it in a ground area. Again, I'm not saying stick it in your front lawn, you could bury it in your basement, but somewhere where there would be, it would be protected from the elements, but in the ground.
I was hoping...
The ground supposedly draws away the ability for it to connect.
I was hoping I could send it to you. No, but yeah, trying to figure out ways.
All right, so
to,
when Tim opened up that box, do you believe that a spirit was released?
If you really believe in spirits, as the Jewish people believe in spirits, they move on such a different wavelength that, not that it was released in our time or our moment. You see, there's a reason when the Jews go and visit the cemeteries, they realize the spirits are there, but we don't see each other. Either they move too fast or they move too slow, but it doesn't matter. We're not in the same dimension at the same time. And that's why they always leave a stone. You'll see a little rock left on the cemetery because that rock doesn't move. And the spirit will say, something has just happened. And so by leaving a rock every time you visit, the spiritual world knows that it's not forgotten, that it is a way of connecting to you even though we don't pass. So I'm not going to say a spirit was released, but a spirit can always have been there and around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have any other questions, Tim?
No. I had one question from the chat, Jason. They were asking, I think you already answered this, but at one point were you ever harmed? Did you ever feel that you were physically harmed by the box? But I think you already answered that.
Well, two things. One was, the things that happened to me, the bleeding eyes, your body repairs itself very significantly. My wife once touched the clothing after I actually sealed the Dibbuk box in her hand, completely broke out in blisters and started bleeding. So anything that happened wasn't so horrible that, it was for life or damaging, but the choking, it was scary, but if I go back and look at it, nothing that was, permanently scarring.
What do you think?
I have to say that when I touched the box, I felt a horrible, as if a knife was going through me, pain from the time I touched the box. And when I finally first sealed it, I got that exact same pain, only what started coming out of me was this clear mucus. Handfuls and handfuls of it.
Oh my God.
And after that, I've never felt that it had control over me. So in the movie, when the thing actually crawls out of the girl and the father, they said, well, that wasn't real. Well, I have to say there was something that has never happened before or again, and if you want to call it ectoplasm or whatever, there was this clear mucus material, and once it was out of me, all the pain was gone, and I've never returned to a state of feeling out of control around the Dibbuk box again.
Do you feel at that point, up until that point, things were kind of building up? Like things were getting worse and worse until you hit that point where you had that mucus that came out of you? Did you feel like it was up to that point that things were building?
I was out of control, and then I sealed it. I took the bath in the sea salt, the basil, and really did a purification and felt that I truly have purified myself, and that's when this stuff came out of me.
Wow.
I was confident, I knew it. And so that's why I could never go back to that point.
So
I recommend, Tim, get some fresh basil, get some sea salt, take a nice hot steamy bath, rub it on you, and you should be better.
Okay. So did you feel that the box was actually was becoming a part of you?
Up to that point, I was being pretty obsessive about it, and I was able to pull myself away from it at that point.
Okay.
And I think part of it was seeing this stuff come out of me.
Right.
Was also to me a clear indication that I got it out of me, whatever it was.
Did Kevin or any of the other people that had the box before, did they feel also that while the box was in their possession, did they feel that it was starting to become a part of their life too? Or?
It certainly was. They carried it around. It caused them problems. But I think the difference is had closure with it, that they ever really felt removed from it, which I really do.
Interesting.
Wow. Do you have any other questions,
No,
Tim?
I think we're good.
Well, you guys are great to have me on. I just tried to answer as honestly as I could. Again, it is sealed, it is buried, it's been that way for 6 months. I have no interest or intent to dig it up. I feel my life is on the right track. For those of you who think that I made all this crazy money, actually all the book sales goes to a public university because they need the help in this economy. All the money, Hollywood has it so that I gave them my story rights. I never really cared. They make all the money on it. I don't. Again, it doesn't matter to me. I live a good life, and I'm not belly aching over it. It's just the reality of it is my life is really pretty much the way it's always been, and that's the way I like it. I live rurally. I've got an exciting job where I get to research history and see cool stuff, and so that's where it is.
Awesome.
While you were talking, Jason, there was like a little, it sounded like a woman's voice. I'll go back and I'll send in the clip.
You heard a woman's voice?
Yeah, after him. Very,
Tim's a medium. He's got medium capabilities.
Yeah, nor I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, no, but I'll go back and we can send the clip to Jason. It's kind of interesting.
Wow.
Cool.
So,
I appreciate that, Tim.
Yeah.
Doreen, you guys have been great. Anytime you need anything, let me know.
Thank you,
Jason, thanks so much. It was such a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for being our guest. We really enjoyed you. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, good night.
Good night.
Good things happen, I hope.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Good night. Wow.
That was a great show.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear it from him.
Do you want to do an ITC to see if you can connect with who's
we're
in
gonna
that
wait.
box?
I don't.
Can we
I don't
take a
wanna-
break?
Yeah, maybe an hour, but I don't think I want to touch.
Oh, come
I don't
on.
want to.
We got to find out who that
If
is.
you leave it at your house for a week,
No. No.
so I have to deal with basically the consequences. But yeah, do you guys have any questions for Noreen or us? I know Noreen's going to be doing a show next Thursday on who is your guest?
I forget.
So we'll be posting that one up. I guess later on this week.
God,
Or
who
actually-
is my guest?
I think it was a UFOologist or
No.
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, but soak the box in salt. Yeah, it was a great story. Jason did an awesome job. It was very fascinating to have him on. But yeah, we're gonna be. Noreen wants to do some ITC tonight, and I guess I kind of want to too.
Sure you
But
do.
not with the box anymore.
Oh, Tim, come on. We
I
got to
just
find
had
out. We have to find out who that is.
I don't have to.
Yes,
I'm not
we
curious
do.
anymore. Curiosity killed the cat.
Find out where she's at. Is she at peace?
I'll only do it if you keep the box at your house for a week.
No, I don't want it at my house.
It's a great piece of furniture.
It's not
creepy.
creepy.
I just don't want it.
Believe me, it's not going to hurt you anymore. It will not hurt you.
Then you keep that at your house.
No, I don't. It's not mine. I didn't buy it. It's not mine.
Well, I'll lend it to you. But yeah, we'll do some ITC. I don't know with the box or not, but I don't really want to. If Noreen wants to keep it in her house for a week, then we'll do ITC.
We'll do ITC, but
Come on.
come on. You're a man. Come on.
I know.
Man up, boy. Man up.
I just don't want to. It's totally different when you're dealing with.
All right, can we take a break?
Yeah, we'll be back in an hour. Just refresh the page. At 9 o'clock, we'll be back to do another show for about a half hour. We'll do some ITC. Let's just see here. I've been kind of neglecting the chat, so let's see here. Please, people are asking me, please. You're not a cat, Tim. Yeah, okay. Put it in your storage. Okay, yeah, so we're going to be doing ITC, I guess, at 9 o'clock. Once again, if you guys are more interested in Jason's story, you can purchase his book at the Amazon link on the bottom of the chat. And we'll be back in an hour. So with that, ask yourself, do you believe?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night. See you in an hour. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me and
And
Tim.
please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Kill the show.